Good afternoon. I will be talking on this video about an Asperger's syndrome meltdown. Most of the websites I've seen out there are involving children, and usually they're diagnosed by the time of, say, preschool. And I'm a little disheartened by the fact that a late diagnosis is 16. And I wasn't diagnosed till I was 23. So, I mean, I could make the joke that I was a elder diagnosis. I don't know. So, I figured, because meltdowns are a really big deal, and what makes the more severe Asperger's to be debilitating. It all spawns around routine to an extent. And for mine, I can go a whole week without one. I think my record right now is 3 weeks. Not recently, but in the past, yeah. Anyways, so there's minor meltdowns and there's major meltdowns. They're called meltdowns because it's the brain characteristically melts. It's like in a nuclear reactor, kind of probably where it comes from. Meltdown. It's when the activity has gotten out of control and it's starting to harm itself, and it's intense. You know, it's the idea of lost control. Now, the last big one that I had, there was probably things leading up to it throughout the day, or even the week, because the last one was when a coworker of my boyfriend was going to come over, and I was going to meet him for the first time. Meeting someone new for the first time. There's that. I've talked to him on WoW a lot, and I in turn have gotten a little bit irritated with him, and I believe also on that specific Saturday, our upstairs neighbors were training tap dancing elephants, and the loud noises that I don't know where they're coming from was probably an agitator, as well as meeting someone new, and I wasn't completely friendly with him to begin with. In fact, I was trying to meet him in real life, hoping that I would get to know him a little bit better and be able to understand some things about him. And in terminology, it did work. You know, I get along with him a little bit better now that I actually have face-to-face. I actually know what he looks like, and I've been able to study his tics, his emotional responses to things. So that helps. But he brought over pizza one time when he came over, and our door has a magnet on the inside of the little squishy part that's supposed to cushion the door, but it's got a magnet so it holds the seal. When we moved in here, I was like, that's amazing. That's really cool. We don't have to worry about, cold air seeping in or whatnot. The problem is, an uncontrolled door close results in a slam. Now, it's a little hallway, but it's shaped to point right at my computer as the hallway coming in. So, here comes the guy and the boyfriend, and they're walking in, And he just lets the door go because he didn't know any better. He didn't live here. He didn't know to not do it. And it slammed. And it shook everything. And I slammed my fist down on my keyboard desk thing here because I could feel, like, in your vision, when you've got, like, it's coming in and closing down, you're getting like a tunnel vision. That's what it was. Like, I knew my vision was going away. One had triggered. And like, I'm 31. I've gotten to the point where I've been able to figure out a little more than half of the triggering, like when they're actually happening. I've gotten my brain to be aware of key symptoms, and it's like the tunnel vision when everything's getting really close, and these all happen in maybe 5 seconds. It's taken a lot of training to be able to realize, boom, 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 that's it. I have to run through a checklist and go, yeah, this is happening. And I slammed my fist down, which rattled my monitor and knocked over my speakers, and I was getting tunnel vision. And I kind of had that, like, hair on the back of my neck sort of standing straight up. And I immediately told my boyfriend, I'm sorry, I gotta go. It wasn't even, to most people, it was literally the door slammed, my fist slammed, I stood up, said, I gotta go, and I ran into the bedroom. And I slammed the door. I knocked over a chair on the way out. From what people tell me, it looked deliberate. I don't know. I lose the ability to form memories at that time, because the brain, if you've watched my previous videos about how Asperger's think, and you get that circle up there, and it's just sort of spinning, and you have to grab ideas. Imagine if that thing just starts like wobbling all over the place on like an axis, and it's just, that's the thoughts. Nothing gets, the process of thinking is stimuli to process, to reaction, to memory. If you think about that's what happens, is you touch something hot, and then it goes to your brain. You process, that's hot, then the reaction, and then you remember. Things can get screwy with that one in everybody, and it doesn't, because you can resist the reaction, but you still have the memory that it was hot. My brain, and I've talked with doctors about this, if you get a cut of the brain, one hemisphere, and there's that kind of, almost looks like a void in the center of it, on the front curve of it, on this side, there's an area of the brain, and I'm forgetting what it's called. But from what I'm told, that part of my brain seizes. For a very, very literal definition, I'm having a seizure. And that blocks my processing. It jumps over, and I move to reaction. And then it goes back to stimuli. I lose processing to memory. So I don't remember anything that's going on, and I don't think about what's going on. I'm completely reacting to everything in my environment because of Lord knows whatever. That specific incident, the straw that broke the camel's back, was a really, really loud noise. There have been other times when that fire alarm right there went off, and it was another one. And I was on the porch with a couch cushion, and my head was buried into it, and I was screaming, I think, until my voice went. Roughly the same thing happened in the bedroom when a friend came over. I was in the bedroom, and I was just curled up in a little ball, and my face in my pillow, screaming. not even like a forced, like, you know, you can kind of act a scream. I'm not going to do it because my microphone and the phone's pretty bad. Anyways, I was, you know, when someone's honestly screaming out of terror and when they're screaming for, you know, the fun of screaming. Parents learn that one with their kids. You can tell when they're playfully screaming and when they're honest to God scared or whatnot or hurt. And this one is, and the boyfriend came in and he like put his hand on my back because we've rehearsed and that's okay, right at the kind of where the two ribs, the floating ribs come in, and he just places his hand straight down because when I'm curled up in a little ball, that's where the peak's at. I curled up so tightly and I'm just screaming. He just places his hand there, that's it. He doesn't say anything until I've got some measure of breathing control, or I stop saying the same phrase over and over and over and over and over. And that lasted half an hour, maybe 45 minutes, I think was what I was told. And then, because everything in my brain was spinning out of control, my emotions were running completely rampant. I swear every emotion chemical, like adrenaline or dopamine and serotonin, and all those brain chemicals were being instantly squished out of their little glands and flooding my brain. I was clenched into a little ball, and from what I was told, like, my muscles were all trying to contract at the same time, so my arm was like trying to go forward and back at the same time, so I was having this shaking. The joke is my body on every setting turned it to 11, and that's what a major meltdown is. For those that haven't known, the idea is amplifiers for guitars and stuff go to 10. So you want to crank it to 10 because that's what you want. But if you go to, you know, you crank it to max, full speed ahead sort of thing, you crank it to 11, you're going on that emergency thrust. You're not going in like a fighter jet, you're not going at full engines, you engage the afterburners. You are overclocking, for computers terms. I made a lot of references and bounced that around. Hopefully you've all understood it. My body overclocks, and I've watched some videos today, so they're really fresh in my memory, about what happens when the toddlers do it. And it does seem, from my self-reflections about myself and what I've heard, that they're doing the same thing. They're overclocked. But they're little and they don't know what to do. And when I was working at a television factory, and I had another one, I'm not sure what caused that one. That was one of the first ones that I vividly have recollection of actually happening, because I was unloading televisions from the clean room, because we were working on projection televisions at the time, and I was putting them in boxes, and next thing I know, I'm curled into a little ball, and I'm screaming, and from what I was told, I was rocking back and forth. I don't know, rocking back and forth while curled up into a little ball. Kind of entertained myself with the physics of that. And I was just muttering to myself, I was doing a good job, it's not my fault, I was doing a good job, it's not my fault, I was doing a good job, it's not my fault. So after that incident, and then shortly after, I got into a chair and was rocking back and forth saying, it's not my fault, it's not my fault. I was doing a good job, I was doing my job, it was not my fault. Eventually, security came and removed me. They walked me up to the front, but outside the building rather than through the other one. And they sat me down in the office and were trying to talk to me. I didn't know what was going on. They didn't know what was going on. So they had me. They clocked me out because I was looped out. I was gone. Nothing was clicking. I was, and they just left me in a dark room for a while. Eventually, I think it was about an hour, I calmed down enough and I got on one of the buses, and I know when I lived in that town, I knew the bus system pretty well at that time. That was 2005. I knew the bus system really well. And when I walked out of the factory to the nearest bus line, I got on the wrong bus. The bus driver asked me where I was going. I couldn't answer. The only thing I could say was, I was doing a good job. It's not my fault. So there's the whole bus driver getting involved in this thing. And so I rode that bus for about a half an hour because it was one of the slow ones out to the rural areas, but there was nobody on the bus. And I just leaned up against the back and let the vibration of the engine, like, on the back of my head and just warm my body. I eventually made it home on the bus, and I laid down. That was a big one. The employment center that hired for that television factory, they asked me not to come back. They felt I was a security threat. I don't know if I was or not. And that's happened at other jobs where my routine gets broken or someone playfully surprises me, and I melt. It's beyond it. From what I've been able to pull up from the hidden memories that are blacked out, I do have one thing in my head that works for me, that is me, that I know is present every single time. Get safe. That's it. At all costs. Wherever safe is, get safe. Yeah. Sorry, it's getting a little emotional right now. And I've talked with the doctors and the boyfriend and some roommates I've had, but it's never gone public to the internet before. And there's other videos. I watched one today that's got some good advice about how to deal with it. But I'm going to end off here talking about a late diagnosis and meltdowns. Because I could understand when you're a child and you get early intervention. You know, when you start having meltdowns at 6, but they know exactly what they are because it's been researched, you know what to do. You can then tell your child what is going on. You know, what just happened. This is how we correct it in the future. You know, you tell them that just because the routine broke this time doesn't mean it's always going to break. You know, you don't need to get your child all fatalistic that, you know, and the end is going to be near. You don't want to do that. But like I said, I wasn't really diagnosed till I was 23. And so any meltdowns I may have had in the younger years were just called tantrums. And since there was no idea what anything was, because autism at that point wasn't a spectrum, it was black and white. You were either non-communicative, or normal. It was black and white. They didn't have a spectrum back then. So, now we do. We got the idea of what's supposed to go on, and, you know, yay, I've gotten a diagnosis, but there's, what, 20 years? Most kids are getting diagnosed, at least the more severe ones, at like 3. So, there's that. But I've had 20 years without a diagnosis. And it took a Time magazine for my parents to finally see what is Asperger syndrome. And they look at it and they read it and they just went, maybe. So I'm 23 years old. They ship me off to a doctor. Not that it's not in a bad way. They just make an appointment for me after already telling me what a story they had read, because I was there. I'm not communicative. I'm quite intelligent. And so I go through the battery of tests, and it takes 2 or 3 sessions, and then the test's got to be scored by the doctor or sent off to the processing plant, whatever. And so I get the diagnosis, moderate to severe. And it's like, yeah, I have an answer. Didn't know what to do with it then. You know, I'm already 2 years past the legal age of drinking. You know, there's probably a lot of people watching this right now that wonder, maybe I have Asperger's, or I just got diagnosed. I've been diagnosed since I was 10. I want to watch these videos now that, my parents have the internet. I'm 15, blah, blah, blah. And, if you're 15, for instance, there's still 8 more years of your life before I even got a diagnosis. So it's a little hard to understand that I really haven't had a diagnosis. Maybe I was 22. Whatever. It was, yeah. It was, we'll go with 23. It has not even been 10 years yet. I know that. So, we're going with all that happy jazz. So, it gets hard because, like I said, I didn't have the early intervention. So I pretty much had to come up with stuff on my own. I had to figure out what was going on by myself. Because there wasn't, like I said, there wasn't the diagnosis for it. There was, but nobody was diagnosing it. It was way out there. Yeah, I know Hans Asperger's had it, but, he diagnosed or made the classification for it years before. And it was in Germany, so took a while to get to the United States. And even then, it probably took the globalization of the internet, and people started putting books and medical reports and stuff online, and then the people in the United States are like, wow, look at that over there. I don't know what caused it, but it was about 2003. It's when I went to go see the doctor and I got all my medication and stuff. So, yeah, I've had to develop my own little thing. And I've got my routine to deal with things that are, daily life stuff. It's hard to break habits that, I made myself as rinky-dink reactions to meltdowns or social awkwardness. So, yeah, I haven't been able to hold a job for a while because of the meltdowns. They happen fairly often. I'm not Not sure. I'm on a medication that helps put a braking on the emotions, and that's probably because of this medication is why I've been able to develop the quick checklist, is because it has that braking on it so that I can realize what's going on and make a very conscious reaction to do something before all hell breaks loose. So I'm going to put a link to the video that I watched earlier today down in the comments. So hopefully you either see that or then watch this one and go, oh yeah, I saw that. Or you can have some, because they talk, it's only about 5 minutes. Me, I'm rambling about my personal experience because I've had meltdowns, and I'm an adult, and some parents could watch this and say, well, there's an adult with Asperger's and he has fairly decent meltdowns, but I can still form, videos, make comical ones. But I think going undiagnosed for so long, it has become a little bit more socially debilitating for me and whatnot. That wasn't a pity comment or a sad, feel sorry for me thing. That was just, that's where my path has taken me. That I can't necessarily work in entry-level position jobs because of the nature of their volatile nature, and that doesn't work with me. But if I had higher education, I could work in an environment that was rigorous and regimented and routine, and whatnot. So I'm going to sign this one off, and then I'm going to probably write a fair bit in the comments, with the link and explaining, wow, this is a long video, but, cathartic nature and everything, possibly good to get out.